Good afternoon. How are you? Welcome to round one of Vinyl Junkies versus Discogs, a monthly program that we'll be doing, looking at all things Discogs. Hey, it's an important database, right? So I figure the knucklehead that I met in Detroit is pretty messed up. He's an interesting cat. You'll see. So we decided to unleash him upon the world of Vinyl Junkies. Avert your eyes. He's got two small furry animals nestled right above his two eyeballs. This, folks, Jeffrey Smith. Jeffrey, you're not even here. You fucking son of a bitch. I bet you anything he did that on purpose.
No, I'm here.
So what are you showing me your, like, empty-ass apartment for? There's no fucking... There's no art on the walls. You must be a bachelor.
No. We, my girlfriend and I just had our, the house painted, a week ago. And so all that used to be red behind me. There's too much red. So we haven't had the chance to put everything back on the wall yet. That's a problem.
Why are you not on screen?
I don't know. I'm right here.
Okay, well, maybe it's going out live. So, Jeff.
Yes.
How has Discogs... it's been quite... It's been quite... Wait, wow, this is... I'm hoping this doesn't go wrong online also. I'm getting a lot of technical difficulties, but it's been quite a wild ride for Discogs. I've been... I think I joined Discogs in 2011. Is that possible? Like real early on.
I don't know. When did
you guys open?
We're 17 years old now.
Okay, so 2011 would totally make sense then.
Yeah. No, 18 years old. So been around for a while.
And you've been with Discogs 1 year, and you're the one who takes care of all these I guess client relationships is what you would call it, or just growing the business?
Responsible for all the PR things and partnership things, stuff along those lines.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we don't see you on camera, dude. It's the weirdest thing. I mean, we see your beautiful furniture, so it's not like it's completely wasted, but...
Wait, you can't see me, but you can see the furniture?
Oh, yeah, dude. It's like you're not in front of your own screen, I swear to you.
Wait, how's this?
Fuck no. I don't know, man, I can't say. Could it be maybe a frozen screen? No, that doesn't make sense. Oh, well, Jeffrey.
Taking up the entire screen, can you see anything?
Yeah, only on Skype, but not over here. Jeff, you know what? While you're doing all this, why don't you tell me about where Discogs started? What we're going to do is answer some live questions. And at the end of the whole thing, you're going to be the person who decides which questions were either the most relevant or most interesting or whatever. And that person will win a prize courtesy of our friends at Vinyl Me Please. How does that sound to you?
What kind of prize are they going to win?
They're going to win a record, man. Can you add to that? Hey, wait a second. You got a beautiful t-shirt. Why don't you give the winner a nice Discogs t-shirt or something?
I might be able to do that.
You see? You got some swag. Actually, can I tell you something? For a little while, I don't know if you're still doing it, but you had those Discogs stickers.
Yeah.
You still have those?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why do I have only 2 of them? I order from you guys all the time. It's beautiful. I mean, you know us, right? Sticker junkies. We like kind of like putting that stuff on our turntable lid, or in my case, not the turntable lid, but I like putting it on like the walls and stuff. Yeah, there you go. Laptop.
That one.
Good stickers, man.
Yeah, I got a Jesus sticker. I got a doo-doo. Billy would be happy about that. I got a
Billy's got the run out groove. Yeah, Billy made sure that I didn't run out of run out groove stickers. Dude, I think he must have sent 4 or 5 dozen stickers. I can basically wallpaper the record cave if I wanted.
every time he sends me a package, he always takes a little mustache hair and puts it inside of it.
And you notice how he puts in all those fruity little notes. He's like really, he's got excellent penmanship. I mean, look at the mustache. That doesn't surprise me, right? But
of course, he probably has one of those giant feathers and an inkwell.
Yes, correct. He's the only person I know who still sends out thank you notes. You figure they're written like with a quill.
Yeah. I'm surprised he didn't send out save the date cards for when your package is going to arrive.
You know who does that? I guess talking about just any music thing kind of still is relevant, but you know who does that? I find that they've stepped up their game. I think in general, I mean, I'd certainly like to hear what your opinion on it is, but I just find that in general, especially last year, there's been a monumental shift in the quality of the way vinyl is being handled on every level. It's being reported on more. A lot of pressing plants, you know, it seems like the channels are getting a lot larger as well. We're starting to see it in like grocery stores in the UK, box stores over here. Have you seen that type of trend also on Discogs, or?
I firmly believe that's a product of the community speaking out. You know, it's like the time where just throwing a digital file onto a piece of subpar wax just isn't holding up. I mean, it's not what our community wants, and I'm sure that's not what your audience wants as well. So I think, you know, the focus on delivering packaging and product beyond just standard issues items is a huge thing. That's why we see you know, various labels putting a lot of effort into, you know, this limited edition packaging and you know, going beyond and what Vinyl Me Please does with their, you know, those pieces of art, and then Tyler's you know, kind of editorial along with that. You know, just, dude, if you're gonna drop $30 on a piece of wax, then it better have something else in it than a record. You know? So,
The complete package, I think, is something that's important for me. Like I always, I make reference to the vinyl experience. I don't like the idea of attributing numbers to like a piece of art, but like the vinyl experience isn't just only about that art, it's about the entire thing. But I mean, listen, I'll throw you a softball question. What do you think, you look at formats now and it's like there's such a huge dichotomy that exists between vinyl and, you know, the alternative, which obviously is streaming, where we've seen, you know, reports last week about, what is it? Is it Walmart that won't be carrying CDs anymore? No, it's Best Buy that are completely phasing out CDs, and Target is now making it so that they won't buy stock ahead of time. They'll kind of like shelf the CDs, but they won't pay for the merchandise. They'll only pay for what it is that sells through. So we're seeing that market kind of like shrink completely. And suddenly, I mean, with respect to cassettes, vinyl is becoming a more dominant physical format.
I think so, but at the same time, as far as submissions to our database and what we've been seeing is that, you know, we've seen an increase of somewhere around like 23% CDs, and cassettes are around like 12-13% increase over last year, or over 2016. So we're seeing an increase in submissions. You know, sales is another thing. It's you know, we're still dominant in the vinyl space, and CDs and cassettes and all that are a very small fraction of what buyers and sellers are touching on in both ecosystems. But the main thing is that CDs has just been on the decline because it's a digital file on a piece of plastic, right? So you now get that same file on your mobile or on your desktop or wherever you listen. You know, and you have access to everything via Spotify, Apple Music, etc. So it's just convenient.
For me, you know, as somebody who's really bought every format, I got to admit, I'm not a format snob, believe it or not, but I'm surprised at the cassette thing. because I remember just my radios chewing up my cassettes, and it would kill me if that happened, and the tiny art and all. But it just seemed like the era of the compact disc and the era of tapes was about portability, right? Once you remove that from the equation, there's nothing more portable than a stream. There's nothing more portable than Spotify. Hold on, I'm making a point here. It's my show. It's mine. So what I'm So look, what I'm saying to you is that once you remove the portability aspect out of the equation, what you're left with is the way you want to consume music, right? There's a vacuum that exists between streaming your music and listening to it in the physical format. The physical format involves you being there in a space and time. Okay. And to me, that's really the critical difference between the two things. You know, you don't experience anything just through one sense. You use as many senses as possible in order to experience that. So I think it's pretty normal that, you know, if you're sitting there, you're listening to music and you got this big package and you got stuff that's, and I mean, do you find that as well? Packaging is starting to get, the standard of packaging has gone up too, don't you think?
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. You know, it's what was it? The Queens of the Stone Age last record.
Villains, awesome record. Yeah.
That packaging, you know, with all the art that came in it, the limited edition. I guess it was the indie or the, forget which one. I pre-ordered it, came in, opened it up, and there was a piece of art for each song. And it was super cool.
What I love.
They stepped up their game. I mean, and that came out, I think it came out on Merge. So the people over at Merge just killed it with that package.
Was it Merge? Matador, maybe? I don't remember.
Merge, yeah.
I don't remember.
I could pull out my record and find out.
But
yeah, no, it was awesome.
In terms of, I have a question. In terms of Discogs, what do you find looking back, right? Where Discogs began, what was the initial mission statement with Discogs versus now? I'm assuming, obviously, that the minute that you implemented the marketplace, I mean, things changed completely. But what have you found has changed the most between the early mission statement versus where we are today? And as far as I'm concerned, just if I can preface, I've referred to Discogs as a modern library of Congress for vinyl, or for the, you know, the recorded format.
I can see that. That's not too far off. I mean, our mission has always been to build the biggest and most comprehensive music database and marketplace, right? So it's where you can find the discographies of, you know, every artist, every label. You know, we are an international marketplace, an international database, so it's all there for everyone to partake in, to enjoy, and you know, everyone involved with us on our end, you know, we're here because we love music and we want to be a part of that community. And you know, as we continue to grow, that mission statement is still there. It's you know, it's what started with Kevin, our founder, and then, you know, like Nick Kinlock, who was, I believe, to be the company's first employee, is now an a major part of the team here. You know, and as we move forward and grow, it's, you know, we're never going to stray away from that mission statement, even to the point that the, you know, the database is open source. Anyone can use it. Anyone can access it and work within it. And it'll always be that way.
That brings me to a question.
Sure.
Customer participation. This is viewer participation. And I would just like to say that if all of you working at Discogs watching this, if you don't see Jeffrey on the screen and all you see is that door like I see on my screen, that is not my fault. Jeffrey...
It's not my fault.
Jeffrey, no, hey, let's not go there. Before we even started this,
I can see myself.
There was all sorts of static happening. You sounded like a Vulcan on this thing before we got it all figured. I don't see you. I don't see you, Jeffrey.
Oh man.
But maybe it's me. Maybe my meds are off and I don't see you. You know what the good thing is? I have a very good imagination, Jeffrey. And
Yeah.
I have a very good sense of humor. So if you go to work and you don't wind up being on this screen and all we're looking at is that door, I can imagine like the entire office just snickering at you and calling you a dumbass.
I can see. No, I checked it out on Facebook. There's just my
Door.
door.
You're
And
so handsome. That's the first and last time you'll ever hear me say that to you, Jeffrey.
that's crazy. Should I like dial back in?
You can dial back. Hey, you know what? Why not dial back in? Absolutely. Just hang it up, and let's see if we can bring it back.
All right, that sounds good.
You're a disaster. You're a disaster. Guys, he's really fun, and I really hope that you do get to see him, but why don't we try this again? Oh, I think we're going to see you. Dude. 15 minutes without looking at you. 15 minutes. We were just talking. Now people can understand when I say that you're a handsome lad.
Oh yeah.
You know, but a fucking dumbass. What does he do? Of course, he grabs his thing and puts his finger. Think about how that sounds to the people. Think about how that represents your company, Jeffrey. People are watching this and they're thinking, this is where I buy my records?
If I was worried about that, I wouldn't be on here with you. Oh. You like where I'm
Oh, yeah, I really like it. I love the way you twist it in. You're almost as good as that other one there from Third Man.
Oh,
fucking Blackwell. Blackwell likes saying it. He wished Merry Christmas to all 14 viewers. Is that rude or what?
Oh, you must have grown then.
Oh, yes. I figure we're at least at 16 now. You recently put out your app, right? And
we've had the app around for
1 year about?
We just had an update on the app where there's the marketplace is now accessible via Android.
That's what I meant.
Right.
I'm just trying to keep you sharp. Wanted to make sure that you can fill in the blanks. How has that gone? You've rolled it out how long ago?
That came out just a few weeks ago.
You finding any bugs? Anything been reported?
We are always on a mission to continue to improve the experience across all of our different platforms. So that's why we want the community to give us feedback so we can make those next moves and to create something that's more or less guided by that combined voice, that feedback from the community.
I'm curious. I'm going to ask a few other questions. It'll kind of allow us to go a little bit everywhere. But how accurate? This is actually a very good question. I know that the last time we spoke, I was just logging in a bunch of records, and you told me, dude, just use the barcode scanner, which of course works for records with barcodes. But
right.
One thing that I did notice, if I can just make a little aside, and actually as a kind of like Vinyl 101 or Discogs 101, I always use, when I'm entering my records, I always use the notes section. And in that notes section, what I do is I kind of like put the little history, which is to say that this is where I bought it, this is how much I paid it, and you put all of that, right? One thing that I've noticed is, I don't know if you've corrected it or not, or maybe I didn't get it right, but when I use the barcode to enter a record into my database, there's no option to add notes.
If you're doing that through your mobile device, correct?
If I'm doing it through my mobile device, yeah.
Yeah, I can take that to our team and see what's going on there for sure.
And I'm not sure about this because I mean that kind of distracted me, or it discouraged me from using the app. Okay, and I'm not trying to be a prick. I think you guys are the best. You're the only ones in the market as far as I'm concerned. But in terms of my experience with the app, I don't know if you were actually able to grade the record within the app.
Yeah, I believe that you can score, do the review. I don't know that you can. I think what we're looking at there is that when you scan that in, it'll pull up that version of the record, and then you can add it to your collection. But there's not, you can't submit through the database through the app.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. Because when it came to that, I realized that it's certainly a different experience between doing it on the desktop versus doing it on the app.
Right. Well, you're just going to get a more robust experience through the desktop if you're submitting, right? So, you know, we're driving that traffic there. The app is about your collection, about your want list.
Yeah.
You know, having mobile access to your collection.
That's the most important.
I use it all the time because when I go to a record store and I'm buying records, prior to using the app, I bought 2 of the same Duran Duran records within a week of each other. And I...
All the time.
Oh, dude, I spent $40 on the same record twice. And it was D'Angelo's or something.
Voodoo?
So it was, what was D'Angelo's last record?
Holy smokes, I don't... D'Angelo, Black Messiah, is that it?
Thank you. I bought Black Messiah.
What an awesome record.
It's so good. But, you know, I bought it 2 times. And had I had it in my collection on my app, I would have done that. Another great thing is, you know, when you're at, you know, digs or you're at shops and you're, you know...
Yes, sir.
Use Record Bin, you know, it's real easy to go through and look what median prices are. Things like, you know, you can check pricing, things like that. You know, it might be annoying to the guy at the flea market or whatever you're at. My dog is being annoying.
Look, whatever, man. We'll deal with it. No, I think that's something that I don't have a problem with. The fact that you kind of have an idea of you know, what a record is worth, if you want to call it that, in terms of spending. Because nothing feels worse than picking up a record that somebody jacked all the way up. And one thing that I've noticed with a lot of the old school vendors is they'll make a point of saying, I don't use Discogs to price. And the reason that's kind of code speak to say that my records cost more than what it is that we'll usually see there. So in that sense, I find that your app has really, really changed the way we collect music, because it creates, for whatever reason, okay, and you can be against it or not, but it creates a standard upon which you can kind of measure yourself. For example, if I don't sell my records, okay, I keep everything. That's the whole point of the VJ archive. But if I were to sell some records, I would take your median price, right? The average price that, you know, your median price, and I would make a point of trying to sell my records just a little bit under that. Why? Because, I don't know. Because I don't feel good about gouging somebody for, what was the most expensive record you sold?
Black Album by Prince went for $15,000 US. We've had a couple of others pop up near that price the last couple of months as well.
I'm not right. Why does 37,000 come into mind? Was that something that happened and then was canceled, or?
No, I don't think we've approached something that significant.
Gotcha. How accurate is the information in Discogs? That's a good one also, right? Because you did mention that the database is open source, so people can basically plug in their own information. How accurate is that? That is to say that if they're, you know, kind of like Wikipedia, right? If somebody puts in information that's false, is that something that's corrected on your end, or it's community driven?
Contributors will police that, and I think they're pretty active in doing so. You know, we've got over 375,000 contributors to the site, so there's a process there, right? I mean, that's a lot of people. You know, and then when you're looking at variants of records where, you know, something like Sgt. Pepper's might have, you know, 460, 75, 500 variations of the release. So incredibly accurate when it comes down to you know, finding what variant of a record you have. Granted, it can be challenging for you as the owner of a single record to find that variant, especially on a record like that. But you know, that data, no one else has that data.
I have a question actually about that. Or maybe not about that, but I do have a question. Can I ask you a question, Jeffrey?
Sure.
Okay. How accurate is the version? No. a lot of people don't know Discogs. As far as my experience with Vinyl Junkies, it looks like the ones that are, you know, serious about their collection tend to know about Discogs. Obviously, the price people all know about Discogs, but there's a lot of people that just listen to music that don't seem to have their stuff put on the database. Okay, there's that one. Number two is when you already own 500 records, it can be really daunting to have to put every single one of those in. That's something that I understand as a barrier, you know, to kind of like going to implementing the system.
Right.
Is that is what David Schmeckel actually wants to know is, are you guys planning anything like a tutorial which kind of like guides people through the whole thing? A Vinyl 101, kind of like what we're doing and we will continue doing with all the episodes, but, you know, on your site kind of thing.
Yeah. No, there's several different topics like contributing to Discogs. Like you can find that in the support section, and I will actually take that right now and I will put it in the Facebook stream on this in the comments section here in just a second. So there's a whole entire guide on contributing as far as submitting to the database. You know, back to your point of taking the time to catalog your records there.
Yeah.
That's why, you know, the scan function on the app is incredible. As far as barcode, you know, another trick within searching on there is if you search by catalog number, it'll pull up a record much quicker and get you to like at least a couple of different versions of those variants, rather than, you know, because different releases in different countries will have different catalog numbers. So that's an easy way, and I found that myself, an easy way to go through and get much closer to the copy of the record that you might have.
All right, dude. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get into a little bit of the nitty-gritty and try to describe the average Discogs user, just so that we can get down to how fucking pathetic how pathetic we can be sometimes. Describe to me the average Discogs user. How long does he spend online? It's a foregone conclusion that it's a he, but, you know, give me some stats. I'm curious.
You know, it's an older demographic. It definitely leans toward the male demographic as well, right? So, you know, I think that if you really look at our community as someone that has that like 1,000+ records in their collection, right? I'm not to that point, so but that's our like hardcore user, like the people that are submitting to the database, that are incredibly active on the site, that have a very loud voice within the ecology of what we're doing and as collectors as a whole, right? But then I think what we've got is that core user sitting there between, you know, 100 records and 1,000 records that are the growing demographic, the people that are buying records. That, you know, I definitely say there's those two pieces that we're seeing that are very, very active, right? Sorry, go ahead.
The thing that actually surprised me a little bit is that you said that your average Discogs user trends towards older. Okay, male is a foregone conclusion, but trends towards an older client. I would think that something, you know, the younger generation would be keener to like embrace the technology.
Right. So yes, you're correct. So we, you know, overall site demographics, you got to look at our user base being much different than the people that are traveling into the site, that are looking up information because they're a fan of Kendrick Lamar, right?
Yeah.
And come to, you know, the Damn release page and are looking around on that. It's going to be a much younger demographic. So that's going to skew our demographics as a whole to that, you know, 25-34 range. But if you're looking at the users of the site that are registered users that have a ton of records in their collection, you know, that's just going to be an older demographic. That's going to be, you know, a 40-something, 50-something male on that side. That
really
encompass all of them, but, you know, that's a huge chunk of it.
Yeah, that's a big surprise. I was really under the impression that you'd kind of like the mid-30s.
Right, like you're an old white guy, right? So, you know, that's you.
Yeah, and actually, you know what? The next question I was going to ask is the average amount of time per session. And you and I had the discussion already in Detroit, and I had mentioned to you that I basically have a tab on 24/7. Like Discogs is always on here. I use it. I could not work without it.
Right. So we've
But
got we average over a 37-minute on-site time, right? So it's a lot. So it's that number is pretty incredible. But I also know, talking to people within the industry, someone like you or people within the record label side of things that are going through
okay.
and using that data to determine reissues and things that are out of print. Those are the same people that have the site open pretty much 24/7. Because
I
it's a huge reference point. I mean, we're really the only people that have this data. And in the late, I received a call from a guy at, I'll not say what label, but called up and was asking about information um, on sub labels that they no longer had access to, but they owned, and they just didn't have the information within their systems to determine, basically what records they owned and didn't own. So they were using us as a resource
the
to,
community.
yeah, well, yeah, they were using Discogs, the Discogs community, that data that all our
Well,
contributors have put in to determine what they even owned.
Jeffrey, think about it, man. This makes perfect sense. We've been doing this since forever. I mean, guys of our age. All right, so Discogs didn't exist, but where did we get our information? We used to read books. We used to read Hit Parader. We used to read the magazines. Take those magazines, share them with each other, share the records with each other because you couldn't buy them all. The internet just kind of made things a whole lot easier. So it doesn't surprise me when you tell me that the community that you've created and just basically that massive database of information, that's record related, is more than not likely more comprehensive and even more accurate sometimes than even the label themselves have.
Right.
Like a lot of these reissues involve a whole ton of research, right? And they don't have all the records. Sometimes the research can only be found in the liner notes of this particular pressing.
Right, absolutely.
Did you guys even figure on that when you were developing the database? Did you think about that?
I wasn't there when the thinking about the database is going on, but I'm sure that crossed a lot of people's minds. But the thing is that an important point to go back to is that we didn't create this, right? It's that community of contributors, the people that are passionate about the format, about collecting. They create it. They're the ones responsible for it being as robust and as accurate as it is. So we're ultimately providing the tools, the conduit for them to do this, but it's not about us, it's about the entire community.
Do you see things slowing down anytime soon?
No, not at all.
Your traffic's still going where it's supposed to go. Actually, what's curious to me also?
It's not even traffic, man. It's like the whole idea that there's a trend going on with the format, or that it's just a resurgence and it's going to die back down, is ridiculous. And we just did this piece, the future of vinyl, that's on the blog, and I talked to 2 or 3 people within the audio industry that are turntable or related to the turntable receiver, like the gear side of things,
Sure.
right? They're still reporting record sales, right? So if they're selling a ton of turntables, why would the format start going into some sort of decline? It's just ridiculous to think so.
I'm just curious. I think that it's fair to call it a niche. That is to say that not everybody's looking for that experience, but my curiosity right now is to see exactly how large that niche can still grow again. And I'm referring very, very much to the dichotomy between somebody who consumes their music streaming or via satellite versus somebody that consumes it physically. Okay, so it's not even format anymore. It's really just a question of non-physically, because physically you got to be there. You can't bring your record table, you can't bring your record player in your car. You understand?
Right.
So I'm
Right.
kind of wondering what, if you have any idea of, or thoughts about where this niche is headed, or do you have any stats to kind of, back up what your thought might be on it?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's real easy for us to point back on hard data where, last year we saw a little over 20% increase in the marketplace over the year
Nice.
before. So that's still a huge jump year over year. And, last year being the biggest year, that means, the year before, we're continuing to grow, right? So you see that reflected in the Nielsen, you see that reflected in the UK and the RPI
Mm-hmm.
data. You're especially in the UK, you're just seeing a tremendous shift in the percentage of physical music sold compared to digital and streaming.
There's
It's even more so in the UK than it is in the US.
if I'm not wrong,
So,
they've begun selling it in Sainsbury's, which is, I believe, a grocery store.
yeah. Right, right. Well, I mean, that's happening. You think about this, Urban Outfitters was kind of ahead of the curve. I mean, they saw this coming before anyone else.
Oh yeah.
So, you go into most bookstores now, there's a huge vinyl section. I wouldn't be surprised if something along those lines didn't happen in the US soon. You could, not that you're going to walk into Whole Foods and buy a record, but, I don't think we're that far away for something like that happening. It wouldn't surprise me. The idea that Best Buy is taking CDs out, that Target's like starting to charge for that
Yeah.
space. It's you don't see them talking about that same idea when it comes to the vinyl format too.
No, actually, if anything, they're growing their space where it comes there.
Yeah, and that's just indicative of them moving from one format to the other. The same thing happened when CDs came around, and you went into a Kmart or something along those lines. You just saw the LP space shrink to take CDs in and cassettes and things.
Remember
like
the long box formats?
Yeah, dude. I think maybe the first CD I bought was a long box. What did I buy? It was a Living Color's first record was the first CD that I bought.
The first CD that I bought was Led Zeppelin 1 in a long box as well.
Well, that's a much cooler first purchase than
I think like an 85 or something. Man, they were expensive too. Eh? You had to think how things have changed. They used to cost twice as much as the vinyl did. And we were all in. I mean, we were all in on the fact that, hey, there's no surface noise. It's perfect. And this is something that will never deteriorate. This, you'll always get the same perfect sound. And
there's a funny blog post on the blog about CD rot that one of our database dudes, Brent, wrote. That's pretty hilarious. That it's just come to find out that those things are not impervious to rot. So that's a pretty interesting piece that's up there if people want to look for that. But we were sold. I mean, you're being marketed to. That's what happens. Of course it's a superior format because it's a new format, and it's a way for them to. I remember being the way it was targeted with these like jazz aficionados, where it sounds better, the audio clarity's there.
Oh yeah, classical
as well. And they started doing all of these classic releases in that format, and people were buying them up. If you think about the the radio libraries or the university libraries, think about all the space that was saved by moving these collections from vinyl to CD. You just fit a lot more physical music in a room.
I have so many copies of records that came from old radio stations or libraries. It's insane. You're absolutely right. From a space perspective, I mean, takes up a lot of space, man. Not everybody can house, thousands of records.
No, hell, I mean, I probably got 3,000 CDs, and they nicely have fit in 2 gigantic long Tupperware containers under my guest bed.
And you got to wonder if at some point that's all going to change around. I don't think so, though.
Oh, yeah. It's funny. You get a lot of people that have gotten rid of their CD collection, and I'm not getting rid of any of that stuff.
Me neither.
I really believe that it's not that it'll cycle back around, but those things still have value. I've got some CDs that haven't made it to vinyl yet that plenty that are worth a lot of money still. Like there was God, I had some pretty poor music taste back in the day. I bought a Coldplay. No, listen, I swear to God, I bought a Coldplay EP before like that Parachutes record came out.
Okay.
So it was like a 5-song thing, and there's like 2 or 3 songs in there. It's still super cool. Like it doesn't sound anything like them now. And it's again up in a Tupperware bin somewhere. But I saw that in the marketplace going for like $60, and I was so tempted to be like, I'm just gonna sell it, but I have a hard time selling stuff. But
I have a friend who works in music as well, who once described Coldplay as the sound of 12 those music Hallmark cards. Just 12 musical Hallmark cards playing in unison.
What's amazing about them is you see them on stage live, like on some whatever TV show or award show or whatever, and there's no guitar parts, but the guitar player is just sitting there like playing his heart out. I don't hear any guitar, man. No.
Very affected. I can't comment. Look, I don't know. I don't know its type of thing. It's just it never caught me, But it's funny how music taste changes, right? Because there was a whole lot, like the thing that I point to most is 90s hip-hop. A lot of that 90s hip-hop during the age of bling is something that went completely over my head because the bling and the aesthetic that accompanied that look or accompanied the music is something that wasn't for me at all. As a result, I'm getting into stuff like Biggie Smalls and Missy Elliott. Fucking a decade, 15 years after the fact.
You can't go wrong with any Missy Elliott release.
Yeah.
I encourage you. And the guys over at Vinyl Me Please, didn't they do a reissue?
Super Duper Fly, man. It's beautiful.
Get that record. It's so good.
The coolest thing, it's like I have my kid's in 6th grade, right? So I was just taking her to school, and they're at the age where they start wanting to download their music, and Kendrick Lamar, she knows, what's the single? Humble? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
At some point it just went to a Missy Elliott song, and it's like, oh, Dad, I know what Missy Elliott is, and she's getting her first introduction to the music with the potty mouth. Plenty of that stuff.
Does she make you drop her off for school like 3 or 4 blocks away so that people don't see that it's you that's dropping her off?
No, actually, I think the parents seem to be a lot more afraid than the children are. The children are curious and maybe confused when they see me, but other than that, one thing she makes me do though is she refuses to let me drop her off in my PJs. Because when you're in an elementary school, right, here, what you have to do is you have to sign them out. So it's not like you drop them off at the curb and then you have to sign them out. And she refused to, like, just have me go there in my PJs. I had to put on a pair of jeans because it would embarrass her.
Yeah, no adult person should be picking their child up in their pajamas.
Why? Why are you so racist against fabric?
Racist, that's pajamas.
It's fucking fabric. It's fabric, dude. It's fabric.
Racist against pajamas. That's not possible.
Explain to me the difference between a pair of jean cotton and pajama cotton.
It's perspective.
Perspective. That's exactly it. Ultimately, what I'm saying is that clothes are supposed to shield you, and it's a fucking pile of shit.
Pajamas don't really shield you, man.
Pajamas shield... What? They don't invent fucking flannel there in Kentucky?
They do, but it's...
Have you ever put on a pair of pajamas, Kentucky? A pair of flannel pajamas with the little footies? That is comfortable shit.
Yeah, we don't have shoes here and stuff like that, remember?
You still boil rocks for supper? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah.
Got you. Dude, I'm going to ask you a couple more questions because I am curious, okay? But one thing that JC Bergen would like to know, when you guys parse out your info, when you guys parse out your data, is there a breakdown between nationalities, which is to say that are you able to see where most of your traffic comes from or where most of your contributors come from? Have you found any interesting pockets? For example, did you know that Tibet made stamps at one point, I think during the 70s, right? You'll see where I'm going with this. Tibet is the only country in the world that operates on a happiness index. Okay, so there's a consumer index, there's various indices, right? But they are the only country in the world, Bhutan actually, not Tibet, sorry, Bhutan, right, is the only country in the world that operates also on a happiness index, which is why they're considered one of the happiest nations in the world. Now, during the 70s, I believe, maybe the 60s, they had released a bunch of stamps. There were playable records, tiny little playable records. I don't know if you have them in the database, but these are now highly collectible. And you can take these stamps and send a letter and then just put them on the turntable and spin them. Okay.
Really?
So, yes, sir. So the reason I'm telling you all of this, besides, just to tell you an interesting story, is he wanted to know, it's like, wait a second. Like, do you guys ever come across an anomaly of like, wait, there's a huge cache of records in the Philippines, or there's a huge cache of records in Tibet. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, we do. We do parse that information out. We actually have our year-end report coming out next week that has a lot of that data in it. But what I can tell you is, it's just as far as increases in releases added by country of origin. We're breaking that out in that report, and we've seen some things like both Switzerland, Mexico, and I believe Brazil had double-digit increases as far as releases added to the release of Origin, rather being added in. That doesn't mean that they're the largest, but it does mean that we're seeing significant growth there too. Particularly to you, it's like Canada, I believe, had like a 4% growth there.
Okay.
But still, we're looking at U.S., U.K., Germany, just Europe as a whole still having a
Holland, France, Italy.
Right. I mean, that's where the bulk of that's coming from. But it's good signs that we're seeing. Japan, South America, Mexico being more and more involved. It means we're just going to get more, more releases from those countries, and that's going to diversify the palette of music that we're getting, into the database as well.
I'm really curious with the why Switzerland is an outlier. It seems like a pretty strange stat. Like, I mean, I can expect Mexico, right? Because with a lot of labels like Now Again, for example, releasing international psych, the market's being scoured like it's never been before. So you can understand a nation right next to the United States. There was a lot of records being produced there, and but Switzerland, it's like what went into that? Curious.
Oh, yeah, I to be honest with you, I couldn't tell you. It's like what I'm looking at is just data from what we're seeing. My dog is awesome right now.
Awesome.
It's just what we've pulled into that year-end report that we're going to put out next week, and that's just basic stats that I'm pulling from that. I can't tell you, the rhyme or reason why we're seeing an uptick from Switzerland for sure. That. A lot of this stuff, again, through going back to Japan, going back to South America, that's been a focus of ours, trying to embrace those regions more with outreach on our side, expanding the community and marketing to those countries as well.
Dude, this was fun, and the best part about it is that I still got a whole bunch of questions, and it's pretty clear we're going to have a thread that'll go on. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch this in replay and just see a blank picture for 15 minutes. But we did say that there were going to be disasters happening. what do you say we give away some prizes? Feel like you guys got some swag. You feel like giving someone some swag?
We'll give away a T-shirt. Like whoever wins this record, like we'll get them a T-shirt as well.
Beautiful.
Sure.
Okay, so what we're gonna do, in which case, is JC Bergen, you just won based on your breakdown question and asking about whether there would be a cache of records in Tibet, because I am curious about that. And what you should do is actually look up, if you can, look up those stamps in Bhutan, and I wonder if you can put them on Discogs, because I'm not sure that they have catalog numbers.
I'm going to ask our resident data nerd, Brent, and see if he's ever heard of these things. I'm sure he has, but
they're on sale. You can find them on eBay.
Oh yeah?
Oh yes, sir. I've looked.
Hearing of them, that's interesting.
Yeah, dude. So, JC Bergen, you win. Thanks for doing this. Next week we do it all. Next month, all over again. All right.
Yeah.